Okay.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to this really important conversation. I'm Tracy Sprower with Met How at Home, and I am here with my colleague and friend Mallory Brandenburg. We're working together on a few different issues that are facing our aging population here in the Valley. And Mallory is working with Jamie's Place and also in the capacity as our community caregiver liaison. And we're working together on this really incredible opportunity of a 4-year HRSA grant. And we'll hear more about that as our conversation unfolds. But welcome, Mallory. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for doing this. And because this is a really important conversation in our country right now. There's a serious shortage of caregivers, certainly in rural places and really everywhere. And as our population is getting older, we just were having a conversation about Japan, and Japan is also working with a population that's, what did we say? What's the percent of the population that's
Uh,
six
it's over
or
25.
older?
I can't remember if it's 26.9 or 29.1. I can't remember, but it's over 25% that are over 65. And
Right, and
that's a
heading,
record. Yeah.
yeah. And we are also moving towards, a large percentage of our population, and certainly in the valley,
I was gonna say,
as
and in the
as
valley
as
particularly.
aging. And yeah, and how do we care? How do we care for each other? How do we care for those of us who need care, whether it's from age or from a disease or something else? And so we're going to start off the conversation and just jump right into, yeah, what your thoughts are. You've been on the ground of a lot of different roles in caregiving, and certainly seeing your mom being in a lot of different caregiving roles within different communities. Beautiful Sheila Brandenburg, thank you so much for raising an amazing daughter as well. And so just starting off with a real broad stroke of how you define caregiving, why you think caregiving is not being valued as a way of giving back and being monetarily supported.
Yeah. I mean, I think traditionally speaking, caregiving has always been a stepping stone into the healthcare career field. And so there would be this younger generation who's seeking going into nursing or something, anything in the healthcare career field. You really do need to learn bedside manners. And caregiving traditionally had been one of the best ways to do that. And they utilized the younger population a lot. It was never, I mean, not never. It has been used as a career for a long time, but the intention has always been to keep asking people to, get more education, to move farther up, because traditionally the pay wages haven't been something that, you can make a buy a stereotypical 4-bedroom house and have 2.5 kids and support your family on, which has been the American dream for the last, 40, 50, 60 years. And as we see this new generation, and even like starting with millennials like myself, I think there wasn't the emphasis on having your kids learn those inherent traits that you need to have as a caregiver, which is compassion and empathy and the ability to serve somebody without expecting anything in return. And as a culture in America, I think that we have kind of gone away from that a little bit. And I don't, I don't mean to say anything negative, but I just think that kids these days, they're not doing the same summer jobs. They're not having parents who are saying, hey, one of the ways you can give back to your community is to go help out your elderly neighbor and help her keep her house clean, help her, make food, help take her to the library or whatever. I mean, that has been something that parents ask their kids to do, oh, some of them, at least, a lot of them, um, for a long time. And we're not seeing that anymore. We're kind of having this more, um, I don't, I don't want to be rude saying this, but self-centered society where we really just do focus on ourselves and our own needs. And we're not focusing on the greater whole as a community. I think the Met How Valley is unique in the way that we do still cherish that. But I think, we're still, remember when kids used to go and shovel everybody's sidewalks and mow everybody's lawns, and all of those things that used to kind of happen that were traditionally roles that kids took on just to help other people and maybe make $5, for a sidewalk. That's not happening anymore. And I think as we see the baby boomers get older, we're seeing that this gap of kids who learned how to give back to their community, and we're just going to start seeing that gap widen more and more. And my mom went to school to be an RN on a caregiving summer job, and she was able to put herself through school caregiving in the summer and on the weekends, and then she would go to school during the week. And that is not possible at all anymore. You cannot go to nursing school and pay for it on just a summer salary. And I think that that's another reason that we're not seeing this caregiving, is because the wages, just the cost of living. I think it's not even just to do with how much caregivers are getting paid. The cost of living is going up so rapidly, and the cost of schooling and stuff is going up so rapidly that kids are looking to alternative sources besides something like a caregiving job that might give them the experience but isn't going to give them the hourly wage that they're seeking. And then, another thing is we have the internet and social media, and that's created a surplus of jobs for the younger generation to do. They grew up with technology in their hand. It makes more sense for them to get a tech job and to, be an influencer, make money that way, than it does for them to go next door and help their elderly neighbor or community member. So I think that there's a lot of reasons why caregiving is not cherished the way that it used to be. And I definitely don't have the answers on how to fix that. I wish that our society was less selfish and more prone to giving back just to be altruistic, but that is just not the case. And unless, our values change a little bit, I don't know where we go. I think we're gonna have to find some really creative and alternative solutions to figuring out how to help, this generation that's coming into needing care. I mean, we're not even at the peak yet. There's still another decade to go that we need to find caregivers to help. And so it's going to take a lot of out of the box and groups like our HRSA network development grant that, a lot of bright brains put together in the same room to try and find a creative solution to a problem that is, a crisis nationwide. It's not just our valley, it's not Washington state, it's nationwide. And if I could read Japanese, I'm sure they are also having a crisis over there. So um
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and we, briefly talked earlier too about that. I think after World War II is where it really we got sold on this idea of the nuclear family and the nuclear home and everybody having their own life and their own, and economically that was possible, right?
Yeah.
That level of independence, and that there's kind of the myth that of like the strong and independent person takes care of themselves and takes care of their own, and so we really it used to be a lot more common that people lived under the same roof, multiple generations, or even, just people having boarding houses, things like that, because I'm working on shared housing, and it's a tough sell now. It's a tough sell because we've lost some of the skill set
Yeah.
for living together under the same roof, and there is that sense of just, yeah, people
Yeah.
not wanting to compromise.
Yeah, I think that's really it. People don't want to compromise. They want to have their life and they don't want other people in it. And the parents, you know, it's an interesting thing watching kind of the cultural talk about kids and stuff, because parents are like, some people are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be an empty nester, I'm so sad. And then other kids, their kids are 10 and they're like, can't wait till they're 18 and they're out of the house. And it's like, that's the case anymore. They're pushing kids out of the nest at 18 and then, go out on your own and try to afford all of these housing that's so much more expensive. You used to be able to feed and buy a house and buy a car on a teacher's salary, and now teachers are like one of the lowest paid people in the professional industry. Like we're just,
Yeah.
and they take care of our kids. And then, and this is always the issue that people bring up, is you put people who are in entertainment, like football and movies, podcasts, Instagram, social media. Those people are making millions of dollars a year, and the people who are educating and taking care of our families and our children and our parents, they're making, pennies on the dollar to that. And so it's really just where we could switch that as a culture. We could literally change that. We could say, hey, this entertainment industry is just, it's not growing us as people, but these people who are actually raising the next generation and caring for the older generation until death, those people deserve all of the money that the people in the entertainment industry. We as a culture could do that if we wanted to. We just don't. And that's the hard part, is you have to get the entire culture to shift from just seeking out these momentary enjoyment that entertainment brings us, and not cherishing the satisfaction of knowing that your kids are being raised well, knowing that your parents are taken care of and happy and healthy until their last breath. um and again, how do you fix that? That's not something that you can fix.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Well, I think having conversations, is really powerful. And so, yeah, just even having this conversation, and maybe somebody listening is like, thinking, maybe gonna think just a little bit differently after hearing this conversation. There's some really interesting articles going around, and it's been interesting for me because I have a child that went off to school and just had to come home. Just didn't want that. Just didn't want to do that, and wants to, live here in the valley and farm and work at a different level to rebuild a more intergenerational. I've got we have 5 acres, and so they're working on growing food, and now I have a grandbaby here, and so I'm part of the experiment to redo things a little bit
yeah, which
by
is
going
so
backwards.
amazing. But like when I moved back to the valley, I almost every single person that I spoke to was like, well, why are you back here? Why are you here? Like, why are you not traveling? Why are you not taking this time to
Yeah.
go live your life? And I am somebody who is a homebody. I just want to have a little farm and grow my own food and just live a quiet life. And now you get shamed for that. I mean, I had people who
Yeah,
were like, you're gonna regret this when you're older.
absolutely.
Oh, I don't think I'm
Yeah.
going to.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. A lot of people uh have, there's definitely been an interesting undercurrent of judgment that
Yeah.
Ari and I, that there's like a sense of failure
Yeah.
almost to choose that. And so I think that could really shift and change, where we embrace a multi-generational household all over Europe. People are not, the kids are oftentimes staying in the house. And yeah, if we maybe embrace, like, how do we work on our relationships within family units so that they're strong enough and healthy enough where it's positive for
Well, it would solve
everybody to stick together.
so many of the issues that we're facing on a crisis scale in society, not just, the elderly. If we had intergenerational families, if kids stayed close to home, it would be easier to take care of grandparents if we had kids staying in the home longer and not going into debt because they can't afford to pay for these, incredibly high housing. We don't have enough housing. If kids were staying in their family home, that would solve it. It would cut down on the debt, the cost of living. They could help chip in at home. Like there are so many things that we are at a crisis point in the United States, really. Not just our community, but if we change the culture around intergenerational homes, and just building the relationships, I think that we would see a lot of these near boiling point problems start to ease back a little bit and cool off. And how great would that be?
Well, and also, we're at a crisis point with our climate and, and so it could be like this beautiful kind of wake up call of, wow, let's shift everything where we put value and care number one,
Yeah.
care of our place, care of our people, care of our own self in a different sort of, not the self care, sort of like pamper yourself sort of way, but like centering around your gardens and just, yeah, I think
Oh, yeah,
I
and
think
that
there's
was,
an opportunity in these crises. I think there's an opportunity for sort of a turning point, and also there's so much mental health, anxiety, depression, and a lot of things that I think are revolving around this moving just so fast and go, 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 and do, 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 and tons of pressure on everybody that
yeah, like
could
where you're supposed to
really
be
lead.
at a certain time in your life and stuff. Um, it's really hard. It's definitely, as a younger generation, there is a lot of pressure, and I definitely think that there is a higher anxiety level as far as just day-to-day lifestyle. That, we don't have the same problems that the older generations have, but I think the need to feel like you're fitting in and you're ticking off the boxes that society pushes on you is a really big thing. Um, but anyways, I digress. Not not
I know. We're having like a very global. Okay, so let's come back
like
to a more
pros.
specific, and we might not make it through all of our questions, but I think it's important. Hopefully,
Did I
my
freeze on your screen?
yes, you
Oh no!
froze.
What a funny
I don't
picture
know.
of me.
That's a beautiful smile, Mallory. Hopefully, you'll come unfrozen here in a moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, obviously, you have been called to be a giver in this world. You are giving back. And so, I'd just love to have, the world hear from you. Who has been an inspiration to you?
Um. Yeah. Hopefully. Sorry, I'm trying to fix this a little bit. It's
Okay,
funny
yeah,
because you
I
are.
could pause. Well, I think if I pause and come back,
Oh no. Um. I'm just trying to make sure my internet connection. It would be like our luck if the internet decided to go down.
I know. Thanks. Yeah, thanks to everyone out there for your patience because we are
Yeah.
working with, low skills technology in our rural place.
Yeah, the internet here is it usually goes out like once a week too. But you can still hear me?
I can hear you loud and
Okay.
clear, so let's just go ahead and keep on
Okay.
going.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think obviously growing up with my mom who has been, and I mean, when she was 16, she started caregiving. When she was 18, she got her CNA license and then went on to nursing school. So she's been doing this her entire life. And I grew up in a household that I just saw that. I saw it every single day. She was there when they broke ground on Jamie's place. And so I grew up in Jamie's place. I grew up as her with a home health nurse. And so, unbeknownst to me, that kind of caregiving, compassion, empathy, ability to, kind of just understand and see people where they're at and how they need help, I just learned it without knowing that I was learning it. Um,
Mhm.
and I didn't, it's funny because one of your questions said, as somebody who feels a calling of being a giving person, and I was like, it's just, you don't feel that way. I don't feel like I have this huge calling to be a caregiver or a giver. It's just when you see something that needs to be done and somebody that needs to help, then you just do it. And I think that's
Mm.
kind of the feeling that I have is, I know that I have the ability to do it. I know that I feel comfortable in a lot of situations. I feel comfortable going into somebody's home. I feel comfortable with elderly who might have health problems or dementia. I find them really enjoyable to be around. And so I think that that's, just learning that as a child and growing up with that, that's what made me become a caregiver, not because I just have this amazing altruistic personality. I think really it's just I enjoy being around these guys. And I'm starting to kind of get out of the hands-on caregiving, but it's still a joy to be around elders and hear their stories. And I think that's something that uh, people don't think about enough when you think about caregiving, is that there's this whole entire person who has lived 60, 70, 80, 90, sometimes 100 years. And they have these stories, even when they have, end of disease dementia, they still have these amazing stories that they tell because that just doesn't go away. Um, and I think that that's a really important aspect when we talk about caregiving, is that we think of these people as a whole of the past. They have this entire history. They've lived life. They've made it through some of the hardest times in America, and here they are getting older and they need help. They built this country that we live in, and now they need our help to age gracefully and die gracefully. And I think that that's something as the younger generation we should feel honored to do, because without them we wouldn't be here. And so I think that it's just the respect and the reverence for the older generation that I hope at some point the younger generation will see again, because not just respect your elders, but understand that they have a lot of stories and lessons and wise words to teach us. So
Mhm. I love that. And I remember you were talking before about bearing witness to your mom and how, oh, you're back. Yeah. And and how she would just hold someone's hand, and
yeah,
yeah, just bearing witness to, and your mom does have just this incredibly comforting presence that, like you say, just bearing witness to it has sort of seeped in, and
yeah,
we
yeah,
can teach that, we can teach those qualities just through example.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, when I was talking about that before, I think I wrote have it on my doula website. I think I talk about that a little bit too. That there was something about the compassion and how she held somebody's hand, and she held somebody's hand in like a different way than you kind of see anywhere else. And you could just tell that she was really connecting with that person and she was looking them in the eye. And that's just not, you don't see people look people in the eye and hold their hand anymore. That's a really big thing. And that physical touch, and especially when you're older and maybe your spouse has passed away or you don't have a spouse and your family's not around and you're getting older, and people forget that they literally don't get touched. Like even just on a handhold, the lack of touch, and people need touch. You need hugs, you need a hand to hold, you need that kind of like, person to person contact. And the older generation, and especially when they're living at home alone, they don't get it. They have people who come by and might clean the house or a doctor or something, but something as simple as like, putting lotion on their hand, and that 5-minute hand massage or something is the only touch that they might get for days. And I don't know about you, but I could not go days with only having, 5 minutes of touch. And it's just,
Yeah.
that's something that people forget. We need that contact as human beings to feel like we're connected to something. And so that's always something that, yeah, stood out to me is my mom's ability to just take somebody's hand and hold it while she talked to them. And I think that was one of the things that made her, be the revered woman that she is in this elder community, because she just has that presence around her of, like, when you're in her presence, you feel like you're being taken care of and you're being seen and heard. And not, even doctors don't have that. That's just true
Mhm.
bedside manner that she learned probably from 16 and had, you know 40 years to learn.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting. There's more space taken up in the brain from the skin. The skin is our largest organ, and so it's just like it's so important to stimulate the brain. That's
Yeah,
touch of the skin is
yeah.
really. Yeah, I love that you're swinging right into the next question, which is around the qualities that make a good caregiver. And so, yeah, just having that presence, the touch, the empathy and compassion that you spoke of, and seeing someone and taking the time to listen. Is there anything else that you feel like we haven't touched on
Yeah,
that's
I just think,
important as a caregiver?
yeah, patience is definitely a big one, because as they're slowing down, you might not be in that space. For me, I'm a fast talker. I move fast. I am always kind of in a hurry to get wherever. And one of the biggest challenges I had to deal with, and still do, I definitely get told to talk slower, or move slower. It's just to kind of lean back into where they're at and not feel rushed. If you're taking care of somebody, don't rush them through these tasks. These daily tasks that
Mhm.
give them purpose, and just having the ability to slow down and be patient without making them feel like you're waiting on them, being able to
Mhm.
just say it's okay to take your time. I think that's a really big one that we forget about a lot in our rush to get things done. Or I see that a lot in nursing homes or adult family homes. You have these caregivers who are so busy and they're rushing through all these tasks and not taking the time to really just appreciate that this person is trying to do it on their own, and it's really important for them. It might be the only independent thing that they can do anymore, and when we take that from them and we ask them, we put their socks on, we put their shirt on, we button their buttons, we brush their hair, we brush their teeth, like all of those things might be something that they can do if we just sit back and take the time to do it. And independence is one of the big things that I think, um, we really need to try and cherish that for as long as possible, because it gives people a purpose to live and makes them feel proud. And so patience, yes, patience.
Yeah, that is really important. I remember you also mentioning before, one of the harder skills in a way is boundaries, and having, being able to set healthy boundaries with people is also one of those important aspects of
Yeah, if you
caregiving.
don't set healthy boundaries, you burn out really quickly. And I think that that's something that people talk about, but until you kind of experience it, I think it's hard. I have multiple times with multiple different healthcare jobs where you go into it and you're so gung ho to just, either whether it's get as many hours as you can or prove yourself or, impress your boss. You want to stand out. And so you take on all this extra work, or you give more than you're getting back in whatever scenario, and you reach burnout really quick, because people don't realize how much energy it takes when you're taking care of people. It takes a lot of energy. um you know People talk about motherhood and how much energy it takes, and it's not that I'm a mother, so I actually don't know, but I would assume that taking care of somebody, even if it's not 24/7, even for that 8, 10, 12 hours, you're giving a part of yourself, you're putting yourself behind that person, and it takes a lot of energy. And I think that the boundaries are really big, and I've learned that because I've burnt out before. And it's really hard when caregivers experience burnout. Their compassion goes away a lot, not all the way, but it definitely is lacking, and they're stressed and they're tired, and that just makes everything worse. You can't be a good caregiver if you're not taking care of yourself, and part of taking care of yourself is being able to say, hey, I actually can't do this, like having your time off that you need, having the weekends off if that's possible, or at least a weekend, not having to work. Some caregivers work, doubles. I've known caregivers who work 24 hours straight because they have to. There's nobody there. And that's just the quickest way to burn out is, giving endlessly for 24 hours, no sleep, and then getting, going home for a quick nap and getting up and doing it all over again. And we wonder why people are burning out at the rate they are. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so many great things that you're touching on, Mallory. I really appreciate your experience and sharing your experience. And so let's shift a little bit from, the on the ground, which is so important, and qualities that all of us can learn just in our regular lives with one another, right? Into this larger vision that Jamie's Place has just been incredible of providing leadership to our community, pulling everyone together in 2020 for the SASH, for senior assessment for support and housing, and just pulling in Med-How at Home and Room One and family health centers and so many different agencies, and pulling us all together around a table and then breaking us up into the main components, which is like caregiver workforce. We have only 6 beds in this valley for anybody who needs care, full-time care. And then Met How at Home, and I'm working on the aging in place. We're talking a lot about fall prevention and things to prevent. And I just want to, and then the caregiver or the care management and the communication between people and how we care for people. It's just been awesome to work on this project. I'm so grateful I get to be at the table with Jamie's Place and with all the other incredible agencies. And so I'd love to hear more about your particular role that you're taking in this effort, because the federal government has been like, yes, we are going to support this community. We are going to support this team of people with a 4-year grant. We made it through the planning grant. Thank you, Raina and Raleigh, for getting us through. And now you've stepped in a really key position, and there's going to be I'm really excited for the leadership that's going to be coming up in the next 4 years. So if you can
Yeah.
just chat a little bit about this.
Yeah, well, I was originally brought onto this grant as the caregiver liaison, which in the past had just been somebody who held a list of caregivers in the valley and connected those people with the individuals that need care. But when I got the list, there was pretty much only like 2 caregivers on this list of, 6 to 10 that were actually still working and still taking on clients. And so the job quickly became caregiver recruitment and retainment and training. And that was kind of built into the 4-year HRSA grant. And the hope, the goal is that we launch this campaign and these strategic plans and goals to find this and build this caregiver workforce in the valley that's able to take care of the potentially 200 plus people in the next 5 years who are going to need some form of care, be it full-time or part-time or just a couple hours a week. People don't realize that even just a couple hours of a week for like respite care for family members is really key and pivotal, for them to maintain taking care of their family members. And in order to do that, we need people who are trained and able to go into a home of somebody who has advanced Alzheimer dementia, and that family member to feel safe to leave. And that takes a special person, because these diseases that we often see aren't something that just the average person off the street could feel comfortable or would feel comfortable helping and taking care of. And so that's my my job, and I would be lying to say that I am not very I don't know. I feel like it is a big Mount Everest climb, and I'm not sure how we build, ideally we would have 20 to 30 plus caregivers in the valley in a bunch of different capacities, be it trained ones or just people who are, you know, individuals in the valley who are empathetic and want to take care of somebody, but we really need, 30, 40 people at least to help take care of these people. And then Jamie's place separately also needs full-time caregivers, and they're at a crisis point right now. They're down 3 full-time caregivers, which means the caregivers who are working there are having to work extra and burning out quicker. And we're finding it really difficult in this culture to find caregivers. And I don't, all of the things that we talked about earlier in this come up to play, that we just don't know how. We don't know how to get people to be caregivers. We don't know how to change the stigma around caregiving. And that's kind of the things that we're trying to tackle, is just finding a way for caregiving to be something that people want to do again and people cherish and hold in high regard. And I don't have the solutions, otherwise we would already have them all. But I am hoping to utilize, the HRSA. One of the great things is that they really try and bring, I just went to a conference in Atlanta from people all around the United States who are doing this rural network, healthcare network. And one of the resounding things there was that the workforce, not just caregiving, but in emergency care and hospitals and nursing, all of that's one of the biggest hurdles that they're facing. And so if we all are facing the same challenge, hopefully we can work together to figure out a solution. And maybe changing the culture around healthcare and the stigma around healthcare is the first step. And that has to be kind of a nationwide thing. So
Yeah. So let's say someone watching this miraculously was like, I know someone who would be a great caregiver, or they themselves are like, I want to get trained. Or maybe you're a family caregiver and there is federal money available. If you go through a certain training, you can be paid to take care of your loved ones in your home. What's the next step for anybody like that? Who should they contact if they're interested in the training, or, that
yeah,
you
you
offer,
can
or
contact.
want to work at Jamie's place? Or
Yeah, if you are interested in learning more about the training or being a community caregiver, which is kind of what I'm in charge of, then you can contact me. And I think that Met How at Home has my resources on their website, or maybe you'll link it in this video. But I have an email and I have a Met How Valley Community Caregivers website. And so going there, we do
got
have
it
an
up.
HCA training happening in January. And that is with kind of a handshake agreement. If you agree to become a community caregiver, the grant will pay for it. Alternatively, if you want to work at some place like Jamie's place, which has a lot of benefits like, job security, you don't have to worry about finding a client. They always have it. Flexible hours, all those things. There's benefits to working at Jamie's place versus being on your own in a community caregiver spot. You can contact Jessica, and I think you probably link her email below too. It's just
Yeah.
jamiesplaceafh@gmail.com. And then jamiesplace.org is Jamie's Place's website, and you can go there to find information about employment and training. But Jessica and I work hand in hand. We work very closely together on all of this. So contacting one of us can easily get in contact with the other one. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that Jesse and I have talked about, is that just having like conversations around the dinner table or when you bump into somebody in the community seems to be one of the best ways to get the word out, because a lot of times it does take somebody in the community being like, oh, I know this person, or maybe somebody in the community is looking for a job and they've never even thought about caregiving before, and somebody over here
Oh no. Know if hang on in this conversation and us here in a moment. Home has going on is that we are for respite care people, another going to be another great opportunity to be able to give back. And we'll give Mallory another moment to see if she can come back on and we can wrap up our conversation. But I really appreciate anyone who's stayed on here and listening in, because this is real live time of this issues that face us. And I know that I've experienced in my own family um, issues of caring for for all of my grandparents, and my family members really rallied. Here's Mallory back. Okay, let's see if
Sorry, I don't know if that was my internet or yours, but
don't know, but I'm so glad to see you back. I've just been chatting away about some of Met How at Home's opportunities that are coming up, and hopefully this is being recorded still. Well, I don't
yeah,
know, but anyway, for those of you who are still with us, thank you.
I know.
So
Rural
yeah,
internet
let's
connection.
I know, let's just there's so many things that we can say about this subject, and I really appreciate just the insight that hopefully you're making available to folks who might not be thinking about this. And anything else that you want to finish up with, or a message to the
Yeah,
community?
I in the workforce conversation that we had yesterday, which was kind of uh, a realistic conversation about our ability to find and train caregivers and the crisis point that we're at, especially for Jamie's place in particular. Is that I am really hoping to figure out how to have a community-wide conversation about this, and maybe a bigger picture, like a Grange conversation where we have people from the public, we have, maybe a panel or something. I just think that one of the ways that we might be able to think of outside the box solutions is to just start bringing the community into this conversation instead of it just being our HRSA group in our meetings being like what to do. We can actually bring the community in, and I think the more we talk about it, the more interest the community will have. And, a lot of times it does start out with the older generation having these conversations because it directly impacts them. But the more conversations we have about this, the more community support we will probably get. And so, I guess what I would leave with is that I hope in the near future we're just going to continue having a broader conversation about this, and hope that our community and the public will come and join us in a conversation and just help us find solutions that will benefit the entire valley for hopefully generations to come. This network grant that we're network developed grant. I'm like, oh, figure out what I gotta say. But it is something that we are trying to make sustainable, that will, be able to withstand the time and the issues that we're potentially will face in the future. We don't want to just create something that's only going to last for 4 years and completely crumble, on the fifth year. We want something that we can walk away from when we're done, doing it, and bring in another generation to help create an even better network, and just keep changing and flexing with the times, but always have that sustainable care for our entire community, which is, multifaceted and is going to take a lot
Mhm.
of helping hands. And so
Mhm.
I think that the more we can get the community involved, even if it's just having conversations, I think conversations are the biggest thing. That if the more conversations we have, the broader, the reach is. And
Yeah.
so I
Let's
talk
do it.
about it.
We're going to set that up, Mallory. Let's set up the date and time, and we can do it with Met How at Home and Jamie's place, and let's have this conversation soon, okay? We'll
Okay,
let
perfect.
folks know.
Good.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mallory. Thanks
Thank
to
you. Sorry
anybody
about
who's
the internet connection
watching.
issues.
Well, we live in a rural zone, and so thanks everyone for practicing your patience and empathy and kindness, just like we need in order to care for each other well. So,
Exactly.
all right.
All right.
I,
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Tracy. I'll see you
I guess
later.
that's it. Yeah, well, I'll definitely see you later today. Okay.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Bye.